Historically, Alfred Kastner and his assistant, Louis Kahn, are credited with the design of the houses at Jersey homesteads. However, the video, Jersey Homesteads in the Architectural Vanguard, left unresolved the extent of construction prior to the hiring of Kastner in early December 1935. His own records note that a certain number of subfloor slabs and foundations fitted with wire mesh were on site before that date. These plans show the specific town blocks. This fact doesn't preclude the presence of other foundations. Indeed, there are indications of more extensive development before that date, as this segment of the earlier video suggested. However, there is some evidence that suggests all of the foundations already existed, possibly laid by Twachtman or some unidentified architect. It's not difficult to see that this foundation with a detached garage and storage area could have evolved under Kastner's control to one with an attached garage and a slightly different configuration. Similarly, two adjacent homes whose garages were attached could have quite easily resulted in two houses attached at the garage. All of this could be dismissed as wild conjecture if it weren't for the fact that foundations of this type with detached garages were indeed built on what would have become the continuation of present-day Brown Street and also on Lake Drive. Further investigation of the project records, principally the architectural plans at the National Archives in College Park, Maryland, provides convincing proof that all 200 foundations with detached garages existed prior to Kastner's appointment. Detailed examination of these plans also uncovered significant evidence that Kastner modified these foundations by attaching the garages to the main structures, thereby creating homes with considerably enhanced living space. For the many cases in which there were attached garages between adjacent homes, his connection of each garage to its adjacent house yielded two housing units separated only by a shared garage wall. That there were foundations already in the ground before Kastner's arrival is evidenced by documents and recorded comments. The very first report of the drafting room, dated December 21, 1935, says, "Reviewed drawings made for Hightstown and agree with following conclusions. Foundations to be retained as planned." It also notes, on site December 21st, Kastner, Kahn, Noble, Kaufman inspected foundations, general character of grades, roads, etc. Harry Glanz, assistant to the family selection officer, recalled that, "I guess the middle of 1935, they had the foundations poured by this time." Also, there is this statement in a government factual summary: "Foundations for 200 houses also seem to have been constructed during the summer or fall of 1935. Finally, a December 1935 press article states, "The uncompleted slab factory is surrounded by foundations for 200 small homes." When the sketches of the 55 foundations on Lake Drive and Brown Street, which were later abandoned, are looked at more closely, it becomes apparent that they consist of a limited number of replicated designs. There is ample evidence that this limited set of foundation shapes with detached garages were the foundations in place throughout the rest of the town, as these surviving topographical plans clearly demonstrate. Kastner inherited these 145 units. This notation on the plans suggests that these structures actually existed in the ground, which is supported by the fact that the drawn ground contours, the purpose of these plans, show that grading around the foundations has taken place. A 4-digit code number appears on each foundation drawing of the early 1936 plans, a classification system that does not appear in any of Kastner's daily reports or Kahn's drafting room reports. Analysis reveals that the codes distinguish between 6 basic foundation designs. For instance, all of those with a code 635.3 are the same, the only difference being on which side of the house the bedroom wing occurs, noted by the presence or absence of the suffix R. It is believed that the 55 foundations on Lake Drive and Brown Street were abandoned for the reason that Irving Plungen, a project carpenter and longtime resident, recalls. A group of people from Washington came out, and they start looking around, so they decided leave that go. Don't build the 55 homes on Clarksburg Road, because it will be too far to walk for the people to the store or to the school. When those 55 foundations were eliminated, that left 145 structures closer to the center of town. Each of the 145 house plots was given a unique number by Kastner's team, plot numbers 1, 2, 3, up to the total number. All 145 consisted of one of the 6 basic foundation types. It was at this time also that each of the 6 house designs was assigned a single letter code. Kastner's team then modified to some degree each foundation type. To illustrate this transformation, observe his team's topographical plan of a Type H design, a 4-bedroom house. Their next step was the drafting of a plan for foundation and floor slab changes. The legend on these plans clearly notes the distinction between the existing and the added foundation. For this house, which was true for each H house type, the plan shows that by attaching the garage to the house, the kitchen was expanded, allowing it to become an eat-in kitchen, and a foyer and large rear porch were created. Porches, regardless of house type, were almost always covered. This is an example of a completed house of this type. Type G, essentially a 3-bedroom version of Type H, experienced the same changes. For the 3-bedroom Type K, connecting the garage to the house provided space for a dining room and an expanded living room. The 4-bedroom configuration of Type K gained a dining room, a foyer, and a front porch. These are the same 3 new areas created for Type I, although there are 3 somewhat different versions of this type. For some reason, the subsequent sketch of this type simply went by the designation Type J, which most closely resembles this version. Type F also has 3 configurations, all of which gained a porch, foyer, and additional kitchen space. Examples shown also experienced an increase in the storage area. House type L and M was assigned 2 letters because the original single-family foundation was converted into a duplex of 2 homes. This structure, unique in having no original adjacent garage, gained only a small addition to a porch, but was totally reinvented under Kastner, resulting in a 2-story, 2-family structure. This major change was noted in Kahn's December 21, 1935 drafting room report, in which he mentions the elimination of Type 564 with all variations of that type. The creation of this duplex no doubt was due to the need to contribute to the total of the 55 units that had to be relocated closer to the town center. Only 6 duplexes were constructed, so an additional 49 houses had to be built to reach the total of 55. As noted in the first video, Kastner succeeded in doing this by creating housing on 3 cul-de-sacs, on School Lane, and by adding a number of other houses where town land was available. Types A, B, C, and E were designed for these locations. As would be expected, no foundation addition plans were found for any of these homes because they were all completely generated by Kastner's team. All of these units had 2 bedrooms, wooden roofs, and were among the last to be constructed. The same description holds true for type L and M, the duplex, except that it consists of a combination of a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom unit. All of the types have now been accounted for, except type D, of which only 1 was built. It was not really a distinct type, however, because its original code number and foundation design reveal it to be a type F, built with a very large side porch instead of a garage. In taking on this project, Kastner and his team both created new house designs and modified the existing ones. By doing so, he achieved one of his stated goals: redesigning of architecture and planning features to be within the objectives of the modest cost housing. The support Kastner received for reformulating this project is apparent when he notes his receiving approval of house plans for house numbers 1 to 36 inclusive. They, Lancel, the head of the Suburban Division of the Resettlement Administration, and other government officials, are highly pleased with the change plans and instruct me to apply the same principle to houses 1 to 100. There is clear evidence that Kastner and his team were responsible for completing the project's goal of 200 homes for Jersey homesteads, and that it was Kastner's input that led to the adoption of their highly unorthodox flat roof style. The foundation changes significantly enhanced the house designs, and his use of floor-to-ceiling windows added to their distinctive appearance. On the other hand, the design of most of the houses, 145 of them, was essentially determined prior to his hiring. Siting of these 145 foundations with an emphasis on southern exposures was already accomplished, just as their floor plans were largely decided. The diverse configurations within house type, usually a function of the garage location, were also established. The slab factory, along with its concrete mixing facility, that Kastner inherited may have added to his inclination to use concrete and cinder block as the primary building materials. While his staff studied both pitched and flat roofs, precast concrete roof slabs for flat roofs had been produced on site before he was hired. Types A, B, C, and E have just one configuration each, little if any distinction between the front and rear elevations, and fewer projections and recesses compared to the design types he inherited. However, type L and M, the other type created by Kastner's team, might be considered the most complex and creative of all structures in Jersey homesteads. Based on the evidence presented, the question is, who built those original 200 foundations with detached garages? Both Plungin and Glanz mention that a local man was first involved, whom Glanz identifies as Van S. Black. The first known town plan, dated February 1934, does have his name on it, but there's no evidence that he built anything. He does not seem to be a likely candidate because many sources, including the government report, indicate no new houses were constructed by the Subsistence Homestead Division, which had authority over the project until May 1935. Another possibility is Quentin Twachtman, whose precast concrete system was commissioned in the latter half of 1935, but who had no professional training as an architect and had a record of building large conventional homes. Yet another relevant name is that of Thomas Hibben, whose ram-to-earth technique was apparently considered, though not used for this project, but who did build a few quite similar-looking houses for a resettlement community near Birmingham, Alabama, in the same time period. An intriguing comment by one of the drafting room architects may come closest to identifying the mystery architect. Originally, the plan of the town was laid out by a Philadelphia architect whose name I don't recall exactly, but it was something like Lechinsky, a Polish man, and he had been persuaded to use a prefabricated method of designing and erecting the houses, which involved the use of concrete. A published directory gives the following listing: Lechinsky, Sigmund Joseph, Office 307 Harrison Building, 15th and Market Streets, Philadelphia. Born Philadelphia, January 17, 1891. Chief Architect, Resettlement Administration, Washington, D.C., 1.5 years. Chair of Heightstown Project for Department of Agriculture. This name appears only once, but significantly, in Kastner's records. Conference with Mr. Schmidt regarding dismissal of Hibben, Clark, Lechinsky. Although Hibben was eventually transferred to another resettlement project, he apparently was at the project site and involved in the decision to hire Twachtman, stating, "The original idea of attempting to solve the problem of producing low-cost housing through prefabrication of building units was mine. An attempt to track down a relevant Clark proved fruitless. It is also possible that a number of architects worked simultaneously on the project, hinted at in Kastner's remark in his oral history interview, 'I fired all of them.'" Much evidence has been provided to yield a significant reinterpretation of Alfred Kastner's role at Jersey homesteads. However, a single document appears to bring even that role into question. Why would this barely visible, small topographical drawing, dated December 4, 1935, show houses on Homestead Lane with attached garages? Kastner was manically efficient, but to have produced this document 2 days after being hired does not seem credible. Could that mean that Lechinsky or some other architect had started to move in that direction before Kastner was even hired? Possibly new research will answer that question and others in the attempt to reconstruct the architectural history of Jersey homesteads, a milestone in early American residential modernism.